Good morning, all of you. Welcome back to the channel. So let's start with our today's analysis video for 23rd of June 2023. So Modi's visit yields many vital agreements. So Prime Minister and Biden, they announced deals on jet engine technology transfers, drones, health and space cooperation. Democracy is in our veins, says Modi, maintaining that there is no discrimination in India. And at the same time, Barack Obama sounds alarm on the minority rights. So, India may pull apart if rights of the religious and the ethnic minorities they are not upheld, former US President Barack Obama said, adding that Biden administration should discuss these issues honestly with the Prime Minister Modi. So there are several dimensions that are being taken up. So governor holds poll panel accountable for the Bengal violence, and the West Bengal governor, he blamed the state election commission for the violence during the ongoing panchayat poll process in the state and held it accountable for every drop of human blood that is shed in the field. So people are disappointed by the apparent inaction from the election commission, and people are in a state of fear. There is violence, but of course, I will not say there is violence all over, but there is violence, and the fact there is violence cannot be denied. So recently we saw that Supreme Court giving a go ahead to the deployment of the central armed forces in the state so as to carry out the local body elections smoothly and in a free and fair manner. Center, it grants approval for the Kalagnar Pen Monument in Bay of Bengal. So that's how it is going to look. And it's a screen grab of the video which is showing the proposed design of this Kalagnar Pen Monument to be built in Bay of Bengal off the Marina Beach at Chennai. So the Union Ministry of Environment has given the coastal regulation zone clearance for the Tamil Nadu government's proposal to construct this Dr. Kalagnar Pen Monument in Bay of Bengal of the Marina Beach in Chennai. But there are 15 conditions which needs to be met. Coming to the editorial page, here this article is talking about an organized counter to organized hate. So basically hate speech. So there needs to be an inspiring alternative agenda that enthuses India and which can move the silent majority away from the climate of hate. So for us, important Supreme Court judgments regarding the hate speech and if any important constitutional provisions which exist, we need to be aware about that. So this article is talking about the Israel-Palestine conflict. So we are seeing incidences of violence increasing from both the sides. So without a freeze on the Israeli settlements, violence in West Bank will continue. And even from the perspective of map work, this area is very, very important. You need to know about the important water bodies which are located around Israel. Then where is West Bank located? The Gaza Strip. So Sea of Galilee, Golan Heights, all of these areas are very, very important. So IMF target met for battling climate and poverty issues. $100 billion. So basically, at the Climate Financing Summit in Paris, the chief of the IMF told that the rich countries they have met the target for climate and poverty funds for developing countries. So the target was $100 billion. So this is coming from IMF that this target is being met. So what is the uproar over the new COP28 president? So who is the president, the Sultan Al Zubair? What is his role as the COP28 UAE president? What are his strategies to tackle climate change? Why did his advocacy for the carbon capture receive criticism? And what are the countries supporting his appointment as the president of COP28? So let us understand all these dimensions. So, almost a week after the United Nations crucial climate meetings in Bonn, Germany, from June 5 to 15, which are considered the halfway mark to COP climate summit in November, questions over the COP28 presidency of the United Arab Emirates industry minister. So each year, the host country of for this COP summit nominates a president to helm the climate negotiations with almost 200 countries. And UAE has announced Mr. Al Zubair is the state oil company CEO as it picks in January. And it's a move that has received immense backlash from the Western lawmakers, leaders of some countries, as well as the civil society groups because of the conflict of interest that exists. So, who is actually Sultan Al Zubair? So, he's the CEO of the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company since 2016, was appointed as the UAE's Minister of Industry and Advanced Technology in 2020. So, the leader who has a chemical engineering and economics background was serving as the Minister of State in the UAE government. So, he's also serving in a contrasting roles as the chairman of Masdar, and that's a renewable energy forum in the Abu Dhabi. So, he's basically at the helm of the oil companies, of the renewable energy companies. So he was later on appointed as chairman of the Emirates Development Bank as well. So why is his appointment facing criticism? So climate campaigners and groups they've been voicing their discontent with the appointment of the oil executive to head the summit responsible for brokering the global partner negotiations to mitigate the climate change. So here we are seeing that there exists conflict of interest, and that's why his appointment is being debated. So scientists, even they are unanimous on the fact that carbon emissions they need to be halved by 2030 and net zero emissions reached mid-century by the goal, if the goal has to be achieved. So another agreement within the scientific community and many world leaders is that reducing the production, the use of fossil fuel resources like coal, oil, and gas is the way to meeting the promise of the Paris Agreement as well. So that's all the entire issue has been debated here. And why has Mr. Al-Zubair's advocacy of the carbon capture even that has been criticized. So on the climate goals, some world leaders they've been pushing for a phase out of the fossil fuels as the way to go, while others they insist on oil and gas continuing to play a role in the future, provided their emissions they are somehow curbed. So that is going to be a difficult task. So Mr. Azbar, he belongs to the later school of thought that you can't completely phase out the fossil fuels. You need to depend upon, or you need to continue with their usage, but you need to at the same time ensure that you are, going ahead with the carbon capture from the industries who are involved in production of energy through fossil fuels. So obviously that is going to be a very difficult thing practically. So climate campaigners and scientists they have expressed caution that technologies that have been proposed so far to capture the fossil fuel emissions they have not been tested at scale. So they also argue that such responses do not hit at the root cause of the problem and they look at the post facto containment once the emissions they are released. So pointing out that they could also divert the attention and resources from effective alternatives like renewable energy. So it's not that we don't have the alternatives and we need to continue our dependence or the usage of fossil fuels. We are having viable alternatives, I should say. So that is the debate here and the concerns. So what plans has Mr. Zubair highlighted to tackle the climate change? So here he has reiterated the need to double down on the renewables. He said in a speech this year that reaching net zero will deliver the biggest market transformation, greatest economic and human promise since the first industrial revolution. And it could be done by tapping into the renewables market. So supporting the idea that developing nations, while the vulnerable to the climate change, they have their economic and development priorities fulfilled. So he said that one of the important focuses of the negotiations would be to get funds from the bigger nations, multilateral development banks, and institutions. So Manipur, it invokes the RBI's right provisions to aid the borrowers. So the Manipur government, it has declared that the whole state has been affected by riots and violence impacting the economic activities and livelihood of the public. So to provide relief, state government, it has invoked a rarely used RBI's provision pertaining to restructuring and rescheduling of the loans. So it provides relief to the borrowers when economic activity comes to a halt, and it offers moratorium on repayment of the loans. So guidelines, they have been mostly invoked in areas which are affected by the natural calamities or not for a law and order situation, but this time it is being invoked in case of a law and order problem, and obviously that is because of the ethnic violence in Manipur. So GE Aerospace and HAL, they signed the memorandum of understanding for manufacture of jet engines in India. So F414 engines, they will power the LCMK2 and the fifth generation twin engine advanced medium combat aircraft MK1. So Prime Minister gives US First Lady a lab grown diamond. So this is a very important topic from science. So they are much in demand now for its eco-friendly nature, and the government has decided to promote them in a big way. So you can find out about how they're actually grown or the science behind the growing of diamonds in lab. So this we saw that Obama says India may pull apart over the minority rights. So that is another issue. And we need to know about what is India's stand on this. The G20 education ministers, they agree on equitable use of artificial intelligence. So G20 members, they've agreed on the need to work together for a resilient, equitable, inclusive, and sustainable future via education. And they seek to overcome the age, gender, socioeconomic challenges. So the Prime Minister says our education, skill, and labor ministries are working in tandem on this initiative, and even the G20 countries, they can undertake skill mapping at the global level. So there exists the challenges in the form of digital divide and even skill mapping. So we need to align the competencies with evolving work profiles and practices. And India, we are undertaking the skill mapping. So that is an exercise that we are conducting. Then apart from that, so amid the search for Titan, we are seeing what are the lessons for the proposed Indian submersible dive. So with hope dwindling on the chances of survival of those in the Titan submersible scientists in India, they're preparing to undertake a similar dive in an indigenous vehicle late next year. So that is say that multiple backup safety measures for the crew they're already in place, though there may be reviews of the safety systems employed now. So Titan, which previously ferried tourists to the wreck of the Titanic, buried 3,800 meters in the North Atlantic, they lost contact with its mothership, which is Polar Prince. So the Titan, it consists of a carbon fire sphere with a titanium casing on the front and the back. When we were in the planting stage, so there was a proposal to use the carbon fire, but we firmly ruled it out and insisted on titanium enclosure. So this is coming from the National Institute of Ocean Technologies director. So, which is like it is in the process of designing the submersible, which is named Matsya 6000. So, here is a picture. It is a prototype of Matsya 6000, a submersible being developed by NIOT. So, it will take 3 Indians to a depth of 6,000 meters into the Indian Ocean. So, it also has a syntactic form, which is a flotation device that would rise to the top and help determine the physical location of the submersible. So we are seeing heat waves in China, extreme heat sweeps China, and temperatures hitting new records. Cooking gas explosion kills 31 people in northwestern China. Australia, it gives Twitter 28 days to clean up the toxicity and the hate. So regulation of the social media platforms is another important topic. So UN official flags deficit of accountability in Sri Lanka. So accountability is an important element. So island nation will achieve neither genuine reconciliation nor sustainable peace as long as impunity prevails. And that is what the UN Deputy High Commissioner for Human Rights had to say. The US approves the Taiwan trade deal despite the China's ire. So US lawmakers, they voted to greenlight an agreement aimed at deepening the economic relations with Taiwan, prompting an irritated response from China. So China said that the move seriously contravenes the US side's stated commitment to maintain only unofficial relations with Taiwan. So obviously China does not agree, or it does not accept any other country intervening or building a relationship with Taiwan. Coming to business page, MPC stresses the need for inflation widget. So it's an important thing to maintain an eye on how the inflation is trending. So RBI governor says the job is only half done with the fight against inflation not yet over. The deputy governor Patra stresses policy needs to remain in brace mode to ensure that shocks from the supply demand mismatches, they leave no scars on the economy. So obviously we know that we've talked about this thing before as well. So it's a repeat and going ahead because of deficient monsoon, that is one of the concerns that might again lead to increasing food inflation. So that's why here it has been cited. Maintaining a vigil on inflation is important at this point of time. So Bank of England, it raises the interest rates to 5% to tackle the sticky inflation problem. So there are different situations and conditions in different economies. You know about how the German economy is performing right now, even the UK. So European countries, they are basically, we can say, moving towards recession because that is what the figures say. So here again, just talking about the deficient monsoon rains. So the taxman sets out rules if you want to switch between the old and the new filing regimes. The new personal income tax regime introduced in 2020 was modified to make it more attractive for the taxpayers. So the tax authority has capped at 40% the depreciation rate applicable for the assets of individuals with business income, and that is what the income tax 10th Amendment rules they reflect. So government taps artificial intelligence to enhance the remote healthcare services that is provided through e-Sanjeevani app. So the central government's national telemedicine service, which is commonly known as e-Sanjeevani, is being enhanced by leveraging AI to improve its delivery of services. So AI it can strengthen the diagnostic accuracy for the consultation in radiology, dermatology, ophthalmology, and it can also enable patients to communicate with the doctors in regional languages. Coming to Financial Express, so here also India-US ties they take jet speed. So GE, HAL, they sealed the deal to make the fighter jet engines for the Indian Air Force. Armed drones, chips, and NASA ISRO space mission is also on the table. So different initiatives, we've been talking about this, things are being repeated. So Fitch is raises the forecast for the GDP to 6.3%. So here we're having the data for the forecast by different bodies like OECD, S&P, IMF, RBI for the Indian economy. So GDP growth in 2023-24 forecast in terms of percentage, highest one is by RBI 6.5. Fitch proposes 6.3%, then S&P and OECD 6%, IMF 5.9%. So on an average, it is around 6%, we can say. So Starlink entry may trigger the SATCOM price wars. So connection cost is going to be around rupees 8,000 to 10,000. Satellite internet services pricing would be pegged at this range per month along with one-time setup cost. So affordable home broadband plans from the telcos like Jio, they are right now at rupees 200 per month. So subsidy for connecting the far-flung areas would be there. Business to business focus could be the key. And Bharti Enterprises, OneWeb, Geo satellite communication, others with license. So with Elon Musk announcing that his Starlink satellite internet services will enter India, analysts they expect a price war in this space on the lines of the telecom sector in 2016 with the entry of Reliance Jio. So as we saw it in 2016, so we might see the same thing, that is basically the price war again with the entry of Starlink. So the reason for this is simple, that with Starlink's entry India's satellite communication space, it will have three players. That would be Bharti Airtel, OneWeb, Geo, they being the other two, and they have applied for the licenses to the Department of Telecommunication. So the very nature of the satellite broadband space means pricing at a premium to the fiber-based broadband services. So you need to know about the difference between these two, fiber-based and satellite-based internet services. So the Paris Summit Finance Minister discusses G20 steps to bolster the multilateral development banks. So India's finance minister is in Paris to attend the summit for the new Global Financing Pact, aimed at discussing various ways to enhance financial solidarity with the countries in Global South. So this has been an issue as far as when you talk about tackling the impacts of climate change. So SOPs for the green hydrogen to be unveiled soon as per the minister. So rules for the carbon credit to be out in the fortnight as well. So we are moving towards the net zero goal. So we have the target of being net zero by 2070. So what is the roadmap for clean air? So India will also have its own carbon credit market. The market, it will help reduce the cost of achieving the nationally determined contributions on net zero goals. Incentive schemes for electrolyzer manufacturing and green hydrogen production will also be announced. And in power sector, India, it has become a surplus country while it witnessed a very big deficit 9 years ago. So these are some of the key points. And apart from this, you need to know about what are the different techniques through which green hydrogen that can be produced, and then what are different types of hydrogen that exist, like gray hydrogen, blue hydrogen, brown hydrogen. So Indus X unveiled startups to boost the relations in defense and innovation. So Indus X is basically the India United States Defense Acceleration Ecosystem, which was launched at the event in Washington. And it will create jobs for working families in both the countries and promote global peace, security, and prosperity. Reservoir levels slightly down, yet they're still comfortable. So storage at 92% the last year's level, but 112% is the 10-year average. So current water levels in the reservoirs, and we have the data as well. So edible oil imports hit the local units and tariff hike has been sought. So local prices, they fall below the MSP. So imports increase 18% during November to May. So import of the edible oils change the volume in terms of percentage on year basis. So landed price of the crude edible oils percentage change in the year you can see for palm, sunflower, and soybean oil. So a sharp fall in the global prices of soybean, palm, and sunflower oils and lower custom duties of the edible oil have led to 18% increase in the imports, prompting the domestic manufacturers to seek a policy correction. So obviously for the domestic manufacturers, it is not a good sign that international prices are falling and even the import duty is being reduced. So between November to May, imports of the edible oils rose by 18% in volume terms. And this has pulled down the mandi prices of the mustard and soybean below the MSP for the first time in the last 2 years. So this is not basically beneficial for the farmers. And this could discourage the farmers to take up the oil seeds in the coming season. So as per the government's plan to reduce the country's import dependence on the edible oils from the current level of 56% to 36% next 3 years, it is in serious jeopardy because right now we are seeing that imports are increasing. Coming to the Indian Express newspaper, so here let's see what other topics that still not have been covered. So joint mission to ISS in 2024, India to join Space Artemis Accord. So you need to find out about the important features of it. Then we are obviously cooperating in the defense sector, space sector pacts, and they have been inked. So we are seeing Indus X, we've talked about it, startups to boost the ties in defense and innovation sectors. Then education is a cornerstone of bond between India and US. So coming to this chart or table, so inside India, Prime Minister's gift box, what did it all contain? So the idol of Lord Ganesha and a diya, both which are made of silver. This is one thing. Then ghee sourced from Punjab. Here you can see different containers. Then there was bhudan, which is a piece of sandalwood from Mysuru. Dhanyadan was long grained rice from Uttarakhand. Then godan is a silver coconut from West Bengal, and budan is jaggery from Maharashtra. Then Hiranyadan, which is a gold coin crafted in Rajasthan. That's how it looks. Lavandan is lavan or salt from Gujarat. Then Rupiah Dan is silver coin from Rajasthan. And Til Dan is til or white sesame seeds from Tamil Nadu. And lastly, Vastradan is hand woven tussar silk from Jharkhand. So with this, all the important like GI products, their state, that also becomes important. Then we talked about lab diamond as well, that has been gifted by the Prime Minister to the First Lady of US. So you need to find out more about that. So made in Surat, eco-friendly diamond is being gifted by the Prime Minister. So diamond, it has been made based on the theme of 75 years of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. It underlines Patel was a co-convener of the Gems and Jewelry Export Promotion Council. And that's why the green diamond weighs 7.5 carats. It takes over 1.5 months to produce such diamonds through the chemical vapor deposition technology. So you need to find out more about this technology and explaining that why it is eco-friendly. So the diamond, it has been made through wind power and solar energy. So it is known as an eco-friendly lab-grown diamond. So special care has been taken to make sure that the diamond becomes a unique piece, and special technology was used for cutting and polishing it. So such diamonds, basically, they are rare and only found in the mines of Canada and Golconda in Madhya Pradesh in India. So chipping away at federalism, centralizing tendencies have increased under the current government. So we'll basically keep it, we'll not talk about more of the political things, looking at things from a broader angle. So firstly, introduction of GST, it is being said through it, the 101st Amendment Act to the Constitution. We are seeing that it is monitored by a council where the states, they have only 2/3 voting rights while the center holds the remaining third. And a decision, the GST council requires 75% majority. So this effectively gives veto power to the center. Second, BJP had promised to revive the intra-state council, but a meeting of this body, it was like convened only once during the Modi government's first term. And this body is created for promoting cooperation between the states. So we need to work more at this front. Thirdly, Prime Minister resented the centrally sponsored schemes initiated by predecessors, which is a common practice. Fourth, he did not consult the chief ministers when he took significant decisions like demonetization and lockdown. Again, this is more of political. Fifth, center has exerted control over opposition rule states by putting restrictions on their interactions with the governments outside the country. Then politicization of the office of governor, which according to constitution must establish a living connection between states and center. Even that has increased in the 5 years. So governors have always deferred to the party in power, but the current government has taken this politicization to another level. Coming to the explained page, so this is the lab-grown diamond which has been gifted, and this gift box we've talked about it. So for Biden testament of an Irish poet's love for the Upanishads, and diamond grown in a lab gift of responsible luxury to float us. So responsible gems, not diamond simulants, lab grown diamonds producing LGDs, how it is produced, like high temperature method, high pressure, high temperature method is also used. So inflation is down, but not all the prices are down. So the headline retail inflation rate fell to a 25-month low in May, and that is thanks in part to the high base effect. But the inflation rate, it has remained high in several categories of food and household items, which means shopping for groceries, it continues to pinch. And performance of the monsoon, it will be now crucial for the future food inflation. So CPI inflation trend has been here for different categories. Cereals and products is for the red one, you can see it is at a higher level. Green one is for spices, so that is at the highest. Then we have personal care and effects, that is light blue. Apart from this, milk and the products also we are seeing inflation. Then household goods and services, and lastly the general index is at 4.25%, which is this graph. So what kind of inflation risk lie ahead? Although we have discussed it a lot of number of time when it's a concern about poor monsoon and its impact on the food inflation. So that is basically one of the major concerns going ahead. Summer solstice. So there's that diagram in geography which talks about all the date and the time period and different position of earth, how the basically with the changing position of earth the seasons change, so that is important to understand. So for those living in the northern hemisphere, June 21 marks the summer solstice, which is the longest day of the year. What happens during the solstice? So this day sees the earth receiving a greater amount of energy from the sun. The maximum amount of sunlight received by the northern hemisphere during this time is usually on 20, 21st, 22nd June. So in contrast, the southern hemisphere receives most sunlight on December 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, when the northern hemisphere has its longest nights. So basically, there are opposite conditions in the both the hemispheres. So the amount of light received by a specific area in the northern hemisphere during the summer solstice depends on the latitudinal location of the place. It is latitudinal location. So the further north one moves from the equator, the more light one receives in the northern hemisphere during the summer solstice. So that's all for today. Thank you so much for joining us in today's analysis session. And do subscribe to the channel if you haven't.